All right, let's get right into a really fascinating piece of history. We're talking about Saint Gertrude the Great, who was a huge deal in Christian mysticism. But, her story has this incredible twist. So today, we're going to uncover the surprising and kind of unofficial truth behind her journey to sainthood. So you hear the name Saint Gertrude, you see she has a feast day, and you think, well, of course, she was canonized. Seems like a pretty straightforward question, right? But what if I told you the official record? Well, it tells a completely different story. That's right. The answer, believe it or not, is a flat no. St. Gertrude the Great was never, ever formally canonized by the Catholic Church. And that simple no is where this amazing story really begins. A 400-year journey where she became a saint not by some official decree, but through pure devotion. To really get this, you have to dig into the historical documents. This wasn't just some simple mistake or an oversight. Nope. It's this incredible case of sainthood that was achieved through reputation, through popular devotion, and a whole series of gradual, almost bureaucratic approvals that literally took centuries to unfold. So how in the world did she become a saint without the official ceremony? Well, it all comes down to a paper trail. Let's follow this centuries-long series of approvals that slowly but surely built her case. What's just wild here is the sheer amount of time we're talking about. I mean, think about it. Her following, what's called her cultus, was only first permitted in 1606. That's almost 400 years after she died. Then it takes another 70 years before she's even proposed for the Roman Martyrology, which is the Church's official list of saints. And then another 60 years go by before her feast day is finally approved for the entire Church. This wasn't one event. It was the slow generational process of acceptance. And let's break that down, because it wasn't a smooth ride at all. Even just getting her a feast day was a major headache. November 17th was already taken by St. Gregory Thaumaturgus, a saint famous for, and I'm not making this up, moving mountains. So the thinking at the time was, hey, if this guy can move a mountain, he can probably be moved to a different day to make some room for Gertrude. It just goes to show you the practical, almost logistical problems she was up against. Even Pope Benedict XIV, writing way back in the 18th century, pointed out that there was no official document for her canonization. So instead, he was like a detective, pointing to clues like this, the fact that a special indulgence was granted on her feast day. He argued this carried much weight because basically they just didn't do that for anyone who wasn't already on the official list. It was almost like retroactive proof of her sainthood. But this brings up a huge question. Why? Why was there so much support for her in the first place? Well, the answer isn't found in any church decrees. It's in a single, incredibly powerful book that detailed her extraordinary spiritual visions. The book was called Insinuationes Divini Pietatis. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it translates to something like Insinuations of Divine Piety. In this collection of her revelations, this was the engine that drove her fame. It spread all across Europe, totally captivating readers and cementing her reputation as a profound mystic long before any official church papers were ever signed. And the person who really championed this book was a Carthusian scholar named Lansbergius. In the 16th century, he wrote this preface to her book that was so powerful, it basically became a crucial part of her whole story. He knew the book was going to be controversial, and he just decided to meet the critics head-on. And this defense was absolutely critical. Lansbergius wasn't just trying to sell a book. He was defending the very idea that a woman, in an age of intense skepticism, could receive such profound visions from God. I mean, you have to ask yourself, why would it need such a strong defense? Well, because back in the 16th century, the idea of a woman getting direct messages from God was, well, it was deeply suspect to a lot of people. Lansbergius knew he was walking straight into a firestorm. His strategy here was just brilliant. He basically anticipates the main objection, that some people will just write off these revelations because they come from what he calls the whole female race, who they see as weak or unreliable. But Lansbergius just masterfully reframes the entire argument. He says, look, the real test isn't gender, it's humility. An imposter, he argues, can't fake true humility. And Gertrude's profound humility, that was the proof of her authenticity. And what's crucial here is that Lansbergius didn't just defend Gertrude, he defended all holy women. He directly takes on the misogyny of his time with this incredibly powerful statement. He's arguing that women have historically proven themselves to be just as, if not more, virtuous and strong than men. It was a bold, direct shot at the prejudice of his day. So he built this really powerful case, point by point. He brings up examples from the Bible, like the prophetess Deborah. He flat out argues that God doesn't care about gender. He even flips the whole weaker sex argument on its head, suggesting God often gives more grace to those the world sees as weaker, as long as they're humble. And finally, he just points to Gertrude's own incredible life as the ultimate proof. And then Lanspergius adds one more critical piece of evidence, sort of his mic drop moment. He pointed out that highly respected theologians from Gertrude's own time, around the year 1300, had already gone through her writings with a fine-tooth comb. And their conclusion? There was absolutely nothing in them to criticize. Her work had already passed the theological stress test centuries before. So after all this, the centuries-long wait, the passionate defense of her work, what was the final verdict? How did the church finally make her status as a saint official? Okay, this is a fantastic historical detail. When it finally came time to officially add her name to the Martyrological, the authorities didn't need a canonization decree. Instead, they found their reason in the titles she was already given in her own books, Fariula Magna, or the Great. Her own legacy became the official justification. How cool is that? So in 1678, her name was added to the list. And later, they added a simple but powerful phrase to her entry, remarkable for the gift of revelation. This was it, the official nod to the very visions that made her famous and had once been so controversial. No big ceremony, no fanfare, just an entry in a book. And with that, she was, officially, a saint. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Does sainthood have to be this formal, legalistic process? Or can it be something that grows organically over hundreds of years, proven by enduring devotion and the sheer power of someone's spiritual legacy? The story of St. Gertrude the Great suggests the answer is way more complex and maybe even more meaningful than a simple ceremony could ever be.